You're watching Sky News. This is the scene live at the NATO summit in Newport in Wales. We're expecting to hear from the US President Barack Obama shortly. We'll take you back there live as soon as he appears at the podium. In the meantime, let's discuss what NATO has actually achieved in the last couple of days. We're joined from our Westminster studio by Alan Mendoza, the Executive Director of Henry Jackson Society. That's a right-leaning think tank. Very good afternoon to you. Let's talk first of all about this rapid reaction force, an announcement we heard about today. We know that the UK is going to add a battle group and a brigade HQ to spearhead this rapid reaction force. What kind of a difference do you think it will make to the alliance?
Well, I think it provides the capability immediately for the alliance to respond to any threat to territorial integrity or to its interests in Europe or indeed beyond. And I think having that capacity to have the rapid reaction force will enable alliance members to feel a little more confident that the alliance is in position to do just that.
Well, it may have this rapid reaction force, but we don't know what the tipping point will be for it to be deployed, do we?
Well, that's always the case with pledges, commitments and how they actually evolve. But the first step to knowing if it's going to be used is at least having it there to be used.
Well, for example, we know that Ukraine wouldn't be eligible for this deployment force to be used on its territory because Ukraine isn't actually a member of NATO. But would it be, if it had been a member, do you think it would be used in this context?
Oh, I think absolutely. I think the purpose of announcing it today, with all the sort of sound warnings about the Baltic states, is to reassure the Baltic members of NATO that actually NATO fellow members will be there to defend them, and indeed to warn Russia that if it does move in that direction, there will be a firm response.
What do you think that, given that we heard from the NATO Secretary General that all of its allies, and that's the word that he used, will come under this umbrella. Now, Ukraine has, in the past and for quite a few years, tried to be a member of NATO. They've contributed troops to its missions. They've allowed NATO forces on its soil. Shouldn't they extend that pledge to Ukraine, even though they aren't a fully pledged member?
Well, I think the alliance itself won't do that because, of course, there is a criteria for membership and there's a whole process for doing so. That said, we know there can be more that could be done to assist Ukraine. We've had strong words from various governments about how the European Union and others stand with Ukraine. I think it is time we did see a bigger push in that regard, perhaps with the sharing of intelligence or even with arms supplies to assist the democratic government in Kiev.
Do you think that they are managing the relations with Russia in a way that they will get what they want from Russia? They've been in a very tricky situation, haven't they, in the past few days? They don't want to antagonise them so much, but they also need to be seen to be firm with them. How do you think Vladimir Putin will be feeling about NATO and its capabilities and its presence today?
Well, I think you can tell how Vladimir Putin feels by the fact that this ceasefire announcement came in the middle of discussions on this point, basically. I mean, he knows the pressure is mounting on him. He realises more sanctions are imminent, NATO is getting its act together, and I think as a result, I think we've rediscovered our resolve and reminded ourselves that if we act together in concert, we can start to make change. But that change, if it's going to be coherent, if it's going to be effective, needs to be followed through now.
Let's talk about the strategy against the Islamic State. This has been very much happening on the sidelines of the NATO summit, the foreign secretaries meeting to discuss what to do. We haven't heard any firm commitments other than the idea that there needs to be a broader coalition. What do you think we should be hearing from NATO on this?
Well, I think what we'd like to be hearing from NATO is a desire to actually tackle Islamic State and actually to push it back. It's all very well getting a broader alliance. I think we do need one. It's essential that more partners in the region come forward to stand with NATO and Western governments on that. But ultimately, talk is not going to change the situation on the ground. Only action will.
So do you think ultimately we may see airstrikes from NATO nations against the IS state in Iraq and Syria?
I think that likelihood is increasing. Although he refused to be drawn on it, the Defence Secretary was, of course, mindful of the fact there is a debate happening next week. We've heard rumours that backbench MPs are being canvassed on their thoughts about this, and indeed that thoughts are hardening towards the necessity of military action.
Well, this summit has been a crucial opportunity for the alliance to redefine its role in a changing world. Do you think it's done that?
Well, I think it certainly started to do that. I think there was a grave fear before this summit that NATO was finished for good, that it couldn't rediscover its resolve or understand its place in the world. I think at the very least we've come out with a sense of unity from this, a sense that actually, although there are problems in the world, if we act together we can resolve them. And I think that's a good enough starting point at the moment. Again, it does need to be followed up. If it isn't, then all this talk will return about what is NATO there for.
Yeah, we heard a lot of talk from Anders Fogh Rasmussen about cash. He says when it comes to security, you get what you pay for. Security does not come cheap. Urging there all the states involved with the alliance to cough up the dough, as it were. But he did say they'd got an agreement for them all to increase their spending, their defence spending. So that an achievement in itself, do you think?
Well, it's an achievement, but it's a pledge. It's not a binding commitment into law. Yes, they've all agreed to do that. Will they actually do it? This is the question. Again, this comes down to whether NATO is going to be taken seriously. If member states want it to be taken seriously, if they want defence, and indeed their defence to be taken seriously, they need to spend a minimum of 2%. We'll see if they're going to do that.
OK, Alan Mendoza from the Henry Jackson Society. Good to talk to you. Thanks for your analysis. Thank you.